If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? Hey, CEO Mischief Makers, MKJ here, and I get to introduce you to a pretty cool guy. I've had a conversation with him already. It was introduced from another person you've already heard on this show, Sierra Luick. But this is Dr. Noah St. John. Noah, how you doing?
I'm doing great, MK. How are you?
I am fan-stinkin-tastic. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today because I know you've done some incredible things. You've been involved in some incredible things, and I can't wait to hear your tips relating to what you do, finance and money mindset and all those things. So let's start with just really, what was the mindset shift, one of the most important mindset shifts you had to make to start what it is you're doing now?
Well, I got to go back just a little bit to give you some context here, because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in New England. But my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure when I was just 15 years old. So from a very young age, I was painfully exposed to the gap, the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everyone else in the community. The have-nots was my family. And so, from a very young age, I hated that life of poverty, fear, lack, not enoughness. That's what I knew in my family growing up. But I saw that right down the street, there's great wealth and abundance. So I literally said, how the heck do I get from here to there? And of course, there was no one to help me. I didn't have any mentors or coaches, and there was no internet back then, of course. And so I just did what we nerds love to do, which is go to the library. As you can see, I love books. I mean, I've published 17 books now. My 18th, 19th coming out next year. But, I just always loved books. And, that the library was the internet before the internet, right? So for you millennials and younger, like, what's a library? I know, it's rough. Anyway, so I just read every book on self-help, personal development that I could, the classics, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey, and I really consumed them. I really tried to get them to work, but I couldn't get them to work. As hard as I tried, I couldn't put it together. I couldn't make it work. So at the age of 25, I decided to commit suicide because I was so depressed and frustrated and, working so hard for nothing. And, I was like, why bother? I really don't want to be here anymore. So at the very last minute, my life was spared at the last moment. And so I realized, okay, I'm here on this earth, but I don't know why. I don't know, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And so I didn't know, number one, I didn't know the answer to that question, but number two, I didn't know how to answer that question. So I went back to the library and started reading more books, but this time more spiritual books. The first journey was more like an outer journey, success and money and wealth. And really that didn't work for me. I mean, I couldn't put it together with with that traditional stuff. And so the second journey was an inner journey, really about who am I and what is my purpose? And reading books by, Ernest Holmes, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay, Neil Donald Walsh, Deepak Chopra, the spiritual thinkers of our time. And then in 1997, I had two epiphanies that really gave me my purpose on the earth. And, the first was when I discovered affirmations, which is how to use empowering questions to change your brain, literally change your beliefs and change your habits and change your life. And then the second was when I discovered something called Success Anorexia, which is something that no one had ever talked about before. And I'm the person that discovered that and, wrote all these books about it. And so, I had I know that was a very long answer to your question, your short question, but it was the whole of the journey for me that led to the work that I've been doing now these last 25 years. You know, I started in 1997 in a 300 square foot basement apartment with $800 in a book on HTML. And now I live in a 6,000 square foot mansion on a hill that my clients lovingly call Success Manor, you know, which is pretty nice. So, you know, but that's really, it's been this whole journey of, you know, as I teach, as I work with my clients on inner game and outer game. And it's only when you put those two things together that you have the phenomenon called success, happiness, fulfillment, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Wow. Okay. So a couple of things that you definitely kind of not necessarily skated over, but introduced in a very haphazard or, you know, no big deal way, deciding you're going to commit suicide and coming back from that at the last moment. We have to acknowledge, I've talked to a number of people who've been in that place. Tony Grebmeyer was on this show, and he talked about his experience with that as well. But what I really want to focus on the questions. You mentioned specifically the affirmations and understanding the questions you need to ask and diving into those questions. Do those two things connect? First off, is my first question, your decision to commit suicide and coming back from that. And what's the difference between the questions you finally either paid attention to or asked or answered that created Success Manor, and the questions you were asking since day one when you went to the library and looking for all the answers in the outward sense? So again, I know I've woven that in a bit, but start with what you mentioned about really wanting to commit suicide and tie that into this idea of questions for me, please.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny. I never shared that story before. For years and years, I never shared that story because I felt like I didn't want people to feel like I was trying to get pity or something, or poor me or whatever. And then one day somebody asked me, I was literally, you know, on stage, I was speaking at one of my seminars, and somebody asked me a question. And for some reason, that story just poured out of me. And the audience had a very strong reaction to it. And I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I should share that, you know? And so ever since you know, in my books subsequently, and, you know, my trainings, I do share that story, not for pity, not poor me, but because, well, number one, there's a lot of people feeling like that, you know, and have been in that kind of position. Of course, many people are right now. I mean, the suicide rate, unfortunately, sadly, keeps going up and up. With these tough economic times and so forth. And so I want people to realize that if I can get out of that, then hopefully anybody can. And I believe that anybody can. And going back to your point of questions, that really was it. And the question that really I was asking when I was in that very low point was, why bother? That literally was the question. Why bother? Why bother to get up? Why bother to go to work? Why bother living? You know? And that's not a very good question, as you can see. That's not great, because the point, of course, was I believe that nothing I did made any difference. And I also believe the corollary of that was, well, no one would care if I wasn't here anyway. And then there's the even further point, which is, well, you know what? People would probably be happier if I wasn't around. And I believed all those things. I did. I absolutely believed all those things, that, you know, people would not only wouldn't care, but they'd probably be happier if I wasn't here. So that's a really, really, really disempowering belief, as you can see. Okay. So that disempowering question of why bother, you know, if you find yourself asking that, for the folks watching and listening, I mean, that's not a good question. That's really bad. I mean, that's when you frankly, you need to get some help, really, you know, whether it's me, whether it's a coach, a mentor, a friend, somebody, get help, because that is not a good place to be, as I can say from personal experience. So then your second question was, I forget your second question, because that was a long answer.
No. And I wove it in. So of course, what is the difference between that outer journey of asking all those questions and reading all those books outwardly of how to create success, and the questions you finally asked and answered, or had answered, that led to Success Manor, right? Really where you are right now.
Well, the book that really made the most difference to me was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And I got the opportunity to interview Dr. Covey before he sadly passed away a few years ago. I mean, several years ago now. And he was just perfect. He was exactly what you would want Stephen Covey to be, for those of you who are Stephen Covey fans, which everybody should be, I hope. And so he was just so humble and so just himself. And I was like, wow, what a role model. In fact, he said something that I'll never forget, because I asked him, and this was, literally before I'd written any of my books, or I hadn't discovered Success Anorexia yet. This was in 1996, actually, the year before I had my epiphanies and started my company, successclinic.com and literally everything. But I knew I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a speaker, an author, a coach. And, I got the opportunity to interview him. And so I asked him one question. I said, Dr. Covey, how do you handle it when people worship you, when they just, and remember, this was before social media and everything like that. So this was, like I said, 1996, quite a long time ago. I mean, just at the dawn of the internet, really. So there was no, Instagram and TikTok and social media stuff. So I literally asked him, how do you handle it when people worship you, when you just, they say you're the greatest thing, and how do you not get a big head? How do you handle that? And he said something I never forgot. He said, Noah, I want people to leave my seminars more impressed with themselves than with me. Wasn't that a great quote? Isn't that a great quote? And I mean, it's something that was so him, just a humble person. And see, that is so the opposite, isn't it, of what we have today with social media and all the gurus out there, and look at all my cool stuff, and aren't I awesome, and look at my jet and my helicopter. And it's like, I get why they do that. I totally get it. I mean, we have to have aspirational marketing. That's what it's called. It's called aspirational marketing. Don't you want to be cool like me? Right? Is what they're saying. And so give me money and I'll show you how to be cool like me, which they really don't, they really don't do that. But my point of that is that, listening to him and then getting into the work that, I've been privileged to do now the last 25 years, I realized that that's what people really want and need, which is, okay, I want to, number one, be who I really am. And number two, I want to be paid for that, and those are two very different things, by the way. I mean, generally speaking, you can't just walk in a room and say, okay, now everybody love me and give me money. Wouldn't that be great, though? Wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, if that's you, your name is Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian. I mean, that's kind of it, right? I mean, the rest of us schlubs have to work, right? We have to do this annoying thing called add value, right? But even in all fairness, they are adding value. Even celebrities like that, there's a value there, if you believe that. But I mean, Paris Hilton, she goes to a club, or Kim Kardashian, they go to a club, they're paid $100,000 just to show up, because the club owner says, hey, if somebody cool like that, who has a big following, comes to my club, then everybody want to come to my club. So there is value, even though it doesn't really make much sense. But anyway, so the point is that the questions that I started to ask were, now I call them affirmations, but it's our empowering questions, that instead of disempowering questions, which literally do that, they take away your power to act. That's what a disempowering question, like, why bother? I mean, I might as well just sit on the couch and watch Netflix, because you asked a really, really disempowering question. So using an empowering question is, it literally flips it on its head, and it gives you the power, or allows you to access your own inner power.
Wow. So how does that now tie that in for me with this success anorexia idea?
Yes. So
just close that out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 1997, I was at a seminar on eating disorders when I had this epiphany. And now I didn't have an eating disorder, but one of my former professions was a professional ballet dancer. So I'm a former professional ballet dancer. So I'm literally the only person in the business and personal growth industry who used to make a living lifting ballerinas. Nobody else can claim that. I own that. But anyway,
very proud of that fact.
I know, right? I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Amazing.
And, I had a very short career. I did have a career-ending injury at age 22. So it was only literally from 18 to 22, a very short career. And then that was it. The body said, nah, I'm done, not doing it. So I was like, oh, thanks a lot. Anyway, so being a former professional ballet dancer, I knew lots of people, in my career who had eating disorders, even though I didn't have one. So the speaker was talking at this seminar about why people develop eating disorders. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, I identify with every single one of those. She said, well, they have low self-esteem and, feel like people would be happier if they weren't around. I'm like, well, geez, I just decided to commit suicide a few years ago. And, they're excel in school. They get straight A's. They're overachievers, but they have no self-worth. I'm like, oh my God, I check every box. And then I said, well, why didn't I develop an eating disorder? And then it hit me. I mean, it literally was the flash of insight that changed my life when I realized that I wasn't starving myself of food. I was starving myself of success. And so I became the first person to identify this condition that no one had ever talked about I named it Success Anorexia. So if you think about it, it is a condition that causes behaviors, just like anorexia is a condition that causes behaviors. Now, the classic behavior that everybody talks about and everybody knows about is called self-sabotage, right? We've seen a million books written about self-sabotage, but do you know, everybody talks about self-sabotage in this way. Well, if you're sabotaging yourself, don't do that. Wow, that's really helpful. Thank you. I never thought of that. Wow, I feel so much better now, right? I mean, that's really their answer. It's like, okay, hey, if you're sabotaging yourself, stop doing that. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Thank you. It's literally like saying to an anorexic, hey, why don't you just eat? Yeah. No kidding. Thank you. Are you getting the sarcasm here? No, that doesn't work. It's stupid. No. But literally that's what, so everybody's up here talking at the symptom level. The symptom is, you're sabotaging, you're holding yourself back. I call it driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake, right? So you're literally holding yourself back of the level of success you're capable of. So lots of people, lots of these guys have written all these books and stuff about it, but that was their so-called answer. It's like, well, don't do that. Get out of your own way. Okay, how would you like me to do that, dum-dum? It's like, okay, imagine you're in your car and you're driving around and you're lost. And, for some reason, the GPS on your phone isn't working and you can't get an internet, you can't get a signal or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I am. So you pull over to the side of the road and you say, excuse me, can you tell me where I am? And the person says, yeah, you're in a car. Yeah. Okay, well.
Yeah, you're right here.
Really
you're standing next to me.
Yeah. He didn't say anything wrong, but it also didn't help at all, right? So that's what those guys are like when it comes to these kind of behaviors, the self-sabotage, holding yourself back. And so Success Anorexia, I discovered, is the condition that actually causes the behavior. So one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm known for helping my clients make more in just 12 weeks than they made in the past 12 months, literally adding 6, 7, and 8 figures in record time, is because I get to the cause of the behavior, not just the behavior. Because if you're only talking about behavior, right, it's exactly like putting a Band-Aid on someone who, is having a heart attack. It's like, this is not helping, right? Or another example would be like, if you have a toothache, right? And you go to the dentist and man, my teeth really hurts. And the dentist says, yeah, you got a cavity there. All right, here's some painkillers. Have some pain pills. And you're like, wait, what? I mean, okay, that's sort of helping, but no, you didn't fix the problem, right? And so this Success Anorexia is holding so many people back without their knowledge. And so they're going to all those guys out there, all the gurus, right, who are giving advice at the symptom level, like I'm talking about. But then they come to me and they say, no, I've gone to all these seminars. How come I'm still stuck? And I go, well, because they left out all the good stuff. So we fill that in and they go, hockey stick, like that.
It's done. So if someone listening to us and we're specifically talking about mindset shifts,
Yep.
You've outlined several of your mindset shifts. What can they look at? What question can they ask themselves? Obviously an affirmation and not a negative question or a destabilizing question. Where can they start to shift their mindset to get out of this success anorexia or this sabotage and all those things? What can they ask themselves to shift that mindset?
Absolutely. So, this is something that I work with my clients on. So if you think about it, here's one of the places that we start with everybody. Number one, you want to ask yourself what it is that you want. Now, I know everybody says that, right? Oh, you got to set your goals. Oh, I'm more goal setting. Yeah. Okay. Well, yes and no. I mean, so we humans are goal-oriented organisms. I mean, we think about something that we want, and then we take steps to go get it. Whether it's a new job, a new house, a new car, or a ham sandwich for lunch. I mean, we're always going after what we want, right? So there's no way around that. Okay. But here's the problem. Well, there's several problems, but one problem is, number one, most people just really aren't very clear on what they want, what they really want. Right. And so, people say to me, well, no, I want to make more money. Okay, here's $5, go away. I mean, no, that's not going to do it. I mean, we got to get a lot clearer than that. Okay. So, well, all right. I want to add an extra $10,000 a month to my income. Okay. Well, now we're getting somewhere. All right. Now, by when do you want that? Well, by next Tuesday. Okay. Well, okay. I get that. I get it. I mean, we're all impatient. We all want it now. And one of the reasons is, of course, because the gurus, those great marketers, great persuaders, great salesmen, they do that. They make it sound so easy. And of course, they do that because they're great marketers. Nobody wants to buy something that's hard, right? You want to buy something that's fast and easy. That's marketing. Marketing 101. Make it sound fast and easy. Shake this on your food and lose weight. The problem is the FDA can't come on and said, hey guys, no, that doesn't happen. Anyway, so the point is that, of course, we want it now. We want it yesterday. I get it. But then the second thing that you need to do, so let's say you're clear on what you want. Fine. Okay. Well, then the second thing we need to do is say, well, why don't you have it right now? If you already knew it, because you probably already knew that, right? You probably already knew what you want or what you wanted. So then why don't you have it? And then people start listing all their excuses. Well, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I'm divorced. I got kids. I got a family. Right. Well, so you always have a reason why you don't have the thing. Right. Those are also known as excuses. Right. But it's also what I call head trash. In other words, well, I want that thing, but I don't think I can do it because. Or I don't think I can have that because, or I don't have it now because. Everything after the word because is your excuse. Everything after the word because is your head trash. And what's so funny is we will defend our head trash to the death, right? Stephen Covey once said, argue for your limitations and they're yours. And that's what we all do. We all do it, don't we? And we hang on to our limitations like we're hanging on to, like a balcony on the third floor, like, please don't let me fall.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we got to let go of those excuses. So whenever we're going after our goals, which is what we're always doing all the time, we humans, there's two forces at work. I call them the driving forces and the restraining forces. So it's exactly like your car, right? So in your car, think about what your car is. It's a vehicle to get you where you want to go. That's all it is. It's a vehicle to get you where you want to go. Now you could just walk, but probably take you longer, right? I mean, you can ride a bicycle, whatever. There's lots of ways to get there. But a car is just a pretty cool, fast, easy, convenient way to get to from A to P, right? A to Z, wherever you want. And so, but in your car, there's two forces. There's the driving force of your foot on the gas, right? On the gas pedal, which drives you, propels you forward, right? And that's, in humans, that's called your motivation, your motivator. Interestingly, motor and motivator have the same root word, movere, which is a Latin word for move. Movere means to move. Okay, I want to move. Right? A motivation in us, in our car, whatever. And so that's the driving force that propels us. But we also have the restraining force. That's the foot on the gas. The brake, the foot on the brake. Yeah. Now, what's the restraining force? Again, in the car is the foot on the brake, but in the human, well, what is it? Well, there's lots of restraining forces. What's one of them? Fear, right? Fear. What if I go after this and I don't get it? What if I go after it and I get it? Fear of failure, fear of success. Hello. How can we have the same? How can it be fear of failure and fear of success at the same time? Don't ask me. We're humans. Have you met us? We don't make any sense. We're not logical. And so the point is that when you look at your foot on a brake, well, let me make it really clear here. So in this guru space, right? Here's what happens. So the person's driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake, one foot on the gas. They're not getting where they want to go fast enough. They're not reaching their goals fast enough. So they're frustrated, right? That's frustrating. So they're like, man, I need help. So they go to all these books, seminars, courses, gurus, whatever. So the first guru comes up and says, you know what you need? You need to put a better type of gas in your car. Okay, put this high octane gas in your car. It's really expensive, but it'll get you there. Okay, put high octane gas in your car, but you still have one foot on the brake. You're still getting the same result. The second guru says, you know what, you need a new set of tires. Get a new set of tires, and then get these really expensive high-end tires, and then that'll get you there faster. Okay, buy it, spend money, buy the tires, put them on the car. Same habit, same result. Third guru comes along and says, you know what? You need a new car. Look at my fancy sports car. You know, I got a really fancy sports. You should buy a new sports car. Come on, it'll get you there really fast. Look at me. Look how cool I am. And you're like, okay. So you spend all this money, get a new sports car, but you're still doing the same habit and you get the same result, except you just spend a lot of money getting nowhere. So what I do is very different. I come along and I say, did you know you have your foot on the brake? And they're like, no. I said, did you know if you get your foot off the brake, we could actually get you to your goals like twice as fast with half the effort? And they're like, really? Yeah, that's why we're able to get, have people make more than 12 weeks they made in the last 12 months without working hard. In fact, working less than they are right now. And they go, where do I sign? Right. So that's the difference. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because everybody out there is talking about motivation, motor, press on the gas harder. If you just think very logically here, if you're driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas and you step on the gas harder, what happens? You just ruin your car faster. Keeping in mind that nobody does this on purpose. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, wow, this looks like a great day. You know what? I think I'm going to hold myself back from success today.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.